Good morning.
Good morning.
When I do Zoom calls, I'm amazed how loud my voice is, so I don't even know if I need a mic.
Get you going.
So I'm going to talk about my journey. I have a lot of slides. Some I may breeze through, but if you have a question afterwards that you know, I can always go back to it and share a little bit more insight into it. There's so much to cover. Like, I graduated from Grambling in '95, and then a year later I moved back to St. Louis, and I've been here doing this since. So, and I painted almost every day since. So I have a lot of work. Yeah. It's funny because when I was looking at my slides, I realized I didn't have a lot of canvas work. But then I reminded myself, yeah, we just dropped off some canvases. And I bring that up because somebody visited our gallery around the corner a little while ago, and she thought I only did murals. So it's interesting when people meet you at certain stages in your life, they don't know about everything else, you know, but here we are. So I've been doing it for a while. You see this little kid right here. I was in my 20s. And this was just going to be the opener, but just real quick on what this was. This is early in my career. This happened, and these slides, all these slides, the way I paint, lines connect, and I'm always amazed how things connect, how people connect, how small the world is. Same thing like with this painting here, this portrait. I went to Atlanta and did this thing called Funk Jazz Cafe. And I did something at the Tabernacle, which is this dope church where they, you know, used to have these great concerts. And I met this woman named Jackie from Coca-Cola, and she liked the mural I was doing. So she was like, we'd like to do this exact same thing for Coca-Cola. Like literally get on stage and paint live. Easiest job ever. And she told me what to charge, which was dope because, you know, the sister inside the company, she's like, when you sit at the table, here's what you ask for. Did that. And then the next year it came up, and she's like, all right, this is the second time, so ask for more. And then I say this because when I came back in St. Louis, I was at the Shaw Art Fair, and this cat named Dick in this dope, you know, car pulled up, and you know, my art tent had a lot of music in it. Budweiser and Anheuser-Busch was no longer doing Kings and Queens, the series they did forever. They now wanted to do Legends. And so he found me, and you know, they brought me in and they wanted me to do Miles Davis and, you know, this whole jazz piece and then a hip hop one. But because of Jackie, when I got to the table with Anheuser-Busch, I was able to say, this is what I charge. So I had a starting base. And I say that just to drop a little nugget early that, you know, a lot of us sometimes are starting something new. People hire you, don't need to know that. You just go in with, this is what I charge. This is what I've been charged. And even if it's only been one time 10 years ago. Just start the conversation confident and boom. It's something else I learned later on at Six Flags, but we'll get to that. So, yes, I got to meet Muhammad Ali. At this point, he wasn't talking, but as you can see, part of his humor was, and he didn't do it, I didn't get that shot, but he had this thing about walking up and acting like he was gonna punch you, which was insane. So this was actually in Harlem. So Budweiser, they actually took me on tour when I did the posters for them. So I went to Atlanta and other places. They asked me, you know, I went to Harlem, you know, for the Butterfly Ball, and they were raising funds for his now museum in Kentucky. And then I actually got to go to New Orleans Jazz Fest too. You know, I just showed up for a little bit, but I got to enjoy the concert. So there's a lot of memory behind this image right here. So yeah, I've had a lot happen in my career, and it all started right here in St. Louis. Just in April, we did Sandra's Son, and I say we, I told my wife Amber that I've always wanted to do a one-person play. Like, I'm gonna get to this project later, but I always see myself on stage talking about my work. I don't know why, but it just felt like it was gonna happen. So I got a mural request and at Greenfinch on Jefferson. And when we walked in, we didn't know it was a black box theater. And it was just like, you know, and my man's watched TV, so he's heard. It was like an oh shit moment. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is a black box theater. I think something's happening here. And then we had the discussion, and boom, next thing you know, we had it. So this story was me talking a story about my life. And it's called Sandra's Son because my mom's never questioned me doing art. Hadn't worried about me making money and all that. She always was behind me. So that's why we named the project Sandra's Son. So this will come back to life again. We plan on collaborating with somebody and putting it on a bigger stage because I think we had something special, and one day you'll get to see it. So early in St. Louis, one of my very first art jobs was at Union Station. They used to have stores in there, believe it or not. And upstairs, there was an art gallery. Picture this art gallery that I worked at. And there was a caricature booth downstairs and a cat named John downstairs. And I'm surprised I remember these names, but first names, I'm pretty good. But John came up and he saw me drawing drawing people as they were sitting down, just to make a little extra change. I was drawing portraits. And he said, Six Flags is gonna be starting up. I think he'd be pretty good at it. Unbeknownst to me, the gallery is gonna be closing soon. So I was gonna be out of a job anyway. I had never done a caricature, but I needed a job, and he said it would be cool. So the way you learn to do caricatures is Six Flags. They give you a pamphlet. This is how you draw faces. Take it home, study it, see you first day. And it's commission-based. So if people didn't like it, they ain't buy it. So it was a very humbling job. It's a very gotta trust yourself job. A very gotta, fake it till you make it. Not sweat too much, even though it's super hot. But I learned so much in that first year. I think it was a seed for most of my career. So these are some examples of what I did to not go back to Six Flags. So while I was there that first year, I was looking through magazines and seeing that people were doing this, for a living. And in my mind, they're at home, pajamas, music they want to listen to. They're not out here, Six Flags, with whatever Six Flags is. That's the life I want. So I went home and I practiced on my canvases every night and just studied, and I came up with my own style. And this was the result of it. This was a short period because at some point I did a Russell Simmons. He came to St. Louis. Everybody says this, you need to show such and such your painting because he'll buy it. Okay, so we tell people that all the time. Sometimes it's true, but you're more successful in giving things away than actually selling them to them. FYI. But when I got there, I showed him the piece, and his first response was, that's cool, but I don't buy pictures of myself. And in my mind, I was like, so why am I painting all these paintings? I lost sight of my goal. My goal wasn't to meet Russell Simmons. I was creating a collection of work because I was inspired by this Rolling Stones caricature book by this artist named Kruger. And I was like, I'm gonna do a hip hop version. But I got sidetracked by his comment. Once he said his comment, I was done. I still have the skill, I still do it, but the flow stopped right there. I let him get in my head. I lost sight of what I was doing. But all the work I did those caricatures, I submitted them to a few magazines. Alan Gordon was a Grambling graduate like myself, and we knew each other, and he was now the editor of Rap Pages, so I sent him a portfolio, gave him the job. I did that for a year, and then one day Chris Lighty called me on the phone, and he was like, hey, I'm doing a project called Violator, I love you, do the album cover, and I was like, but okay. Didn't know it was gonna be what it is, And so here's the beautiful albums. Let me do a real quick sidestep. This was done in St. Louis, and my wife had to talk me off the ledge because the art world is the art world. And the whole little funky museum exhibit that just happened, I had a lot of feelings because, they had St. Louis artists and then other artists. And I was like, well, hip hop is here. And I'm like, but again, I don't know, the art world is a whole nother thing, and museums happen, and I'm not one. I usually submit to shows or submit to this, and when I submit, I forget about it because I realize human beings are making a choice. And just like the culture, that's what the exhibit was called. These are human beings that making decisions for whatever reason, I have no idea. But for whatever reason, I didn't get in the conversation. I had feelings, which I normally don't do, and I even shocked myself, but then she immediately was like, one of my favorite movies is Holland's Opus, Mr. Holland's Opus. And it's like, I've been doing it 30 years, I already have my opus. Like, I don't need this museum to validate me. So she taught me off the ledge with that. But This Violator was done right here in South St. Louis. And because I did that, I also did Phil Mob's Rooted to the Tutor album. I wish I had the inside insert. So if you could find this album or CD, they actually flew me to Atlanta to watch them on this farm, this commune, which was insane. I'd never been in an experience like that, with all a bunch of families, hippy-dippy living together, pig running around and all that. So I'm just walking around and taking all these photos and, old school, take photos, go to Walgreens, make your pictures. And then I did this long insert based on my experience with that. And so I've had a few hit records. The caricature thing didn't last long. I started painting on canvas. Then something else happened. Prince came to was it Collinsville? Yeah, and he did a concert. And it was his Love for One Another tour. So he donated food during this tour to, an organization in whatever city he was in. And it used to be Dignity House on Union. And they asked me and another artist to, bring our work in there. And of course, they were like, you should hang your work. Prince is probably gonna come through and he might see something, we always get gassed up. And, I put a collection of work up and, so did, my man. And we didn't know that the two women who donated that actually brought the food, because of course Prince isn't bringing food. So these two women who were in there and they were cool, nice, but we didn't know they videotaped the show. And so sometime down the road, I got a phone call from one of Prince's people, and he's like, he saw some artwork and wanted to know if these certain pieces were available. And so he bought 3 paintings. Think it's a one and done. A year later, I get another phone call, like he wanted to see if you got some more work. And so then he bought 5 more, and one of them was this. And so I say that because I think I got the very best deal at this situation, knowing what, Prince's reputation. I didn't have to do something for Prince. I actually already had something done and he just wanted to use it. I mean, he bought all rights to it. Like, this was a print that was pretty popular, out on the street. But it was named after my ex-wife, and the album cover was gonna be Rainbow Children, so he didn't want anything out there in the world that wasn't called Rainbow Children, so he wanted to buy all the prints. I kept about 5 or 6 or 7, but I'm kind of honest, so I sent most of them, whereas other people didn't do that and they were still selling them. But sweet end of the deal, probably out of the 3 albums, I think Violator is probably more popular than Rainbow Children, but more people connect me with Rainbow Children. They, people still to this day, even this morning, like, I didn't know you did Violator. Like, it's a thing, my name though, they did, the Prince people are pretty insane, so they do a lot of research. So they've found me. So I hear from people all over the world. Of course, they want a copy of the print, and I can't do that. So I did that project with Prince. After that, I'm just painting. I'm trying to figure it out. Because you gotta think, we didn't have Instagram back then. And now there's so many ways to make art. But when I came out of college, there was no idea of what that looks like. Of course, this myth and this vision of everybody in New York doing big things, which you realize a lot of people back then and still to this day, unless they got representation, most of us are broke because it's really tough. But that's all we knew, as lay people, we knew JJ on Good Times, but that doesn't really tell you how to make a living. We're seeing this cat that can't get out this apartment. So it's not really the great role model for how to make this thing pop. But I was inspired every time I saw paintings, not knowing they were Ernie Barnes. And so I'm just, how do I do this? How do I figure this out? So I just been painting, and I've been blessed with these opportunities. And because I meet people, because I'm a decent person, I think that has been a great way into the doors and a great way for people to use my name. Even to get here today is because, just connections with people, that we need to remember that, like connections with people. Like I keep listening to AI, and they talk about they can't really emote with AI. The beauty in the human connection is something that we can't underestimate. And I think that has been one of the main threads in my sustainability, even when I don't know what's going to happen next. And I freak out because when the phone calls and emails stop, they just stop. And, me and Amber say all the time, we don't know who's talking about us. We didn't know they were thinking about me. Didn't know Chris Lighty was looking at me. Like, you don't know. But all you know is your intention. And my intention is to do this and to promote a certain image, so I just keep doing it, hoping and praying. But, God keeps showing up like, yeah, people are watching. You just keep going. So one way I was trying to figure things out was to do art fairs. And that wasn't going great because people were coming in, they were loving my work, but I've never been a salesperson, and getting people to, commit and actually purchase was tough. Toughest thing ever when you know somebody has money. And I was in Chicago. It was one of my last straws. Well, I call it my last straw. I'm at my booth, and who walks by my booth? It might be the second or third day, but the creator of Star Wars. So the cat has money, so you just want them to look over. It doesn't mean he's really gonna connect with my art, but I didn't even get a glance. And so, and then his wife walked by after him, so it was like, okay. So this was right before 2012, so I'm like, okay, Facebook was this, this thing that people were doing. And so I'm like, maybe if I promote an image on Facebook every day and I sell it for a certain price, and I, just stay consistent with it and do it every day, and I do a price people can't resist, I'll make a living. And so I came up with 365 Days of Dad and decided to make it all about Black fathers for various reasons. Just some, we got schools where almost all the kids in that school, dad in their home, yada, yada, yada. We've heard the stories, but definitely need to make this. And I'm not one for conflict. So at first it wasn't gonna be just Black fathers, but everybody around me was like, you have to. And I was like, well, it's not just Black folks who buy my work, everybody does. And sure enough, many people outside the Black community were like, hey, I love what you're doing. Can you paint my son or my husband? And I was like, ah. And I had to do the email and the answer, and I was just like, if you can get with me after this project is over, but I have to make this just about Black fathers. And I had a few that allowed me to actually take their family picture, and I'm an illustrator, so I can take a picture of anything and just use it as a subject. So I made a Black family based on this picture of their white family, and they had my work in their home just because they wanted to be part of the project. And so this was 365 Days of Dad, tattooed on my calf. My left calf is 787, because that's how many days it actually took to do it. But I'm a jumper. I don't always think about how things are gonna work out, and I didn't say how many kids. I just said, hey, send me your images. So I had either one child, I had a foster dad who had many kids, so I worked things out. 365 Days of Dad changed the way my career has gone tremendously. I think people liked my work before 365 Days of Dad, but then this project said that Cbabi, had purpose or a statement or something to say, or, a tie to the community. And since then, so many dope things have happened. One thing, of course, a lot of people now know me doing murals. Hadn't always been there. When I was at Grambling, I used to look in Black art books. John Biggers, I loved. But even then, I was intimidated looking at him doing these murals, because I was like, there's no way, which people tell me now, and but I was just like, no way. And I never knew that one day I would actually do it. And right now, doing a mural, however big you want to name, doesn't really feel any different than doing this, just because you get the muscle memory. Like, once you get in there, and every time I go up, because people do ask, like the first day, I still freak out because it's so high and the thing is moving and you just swear it's gonna fall. But once I go up once and come down, I'm good. Then I can just play all day for a week and get it done. Same deal with on the ground, like any size. So this first one on top, it was Cherokee and Jefferson. I actually went to my landlord at Nebula, Jason, and I went to him and I was like, hey, can I have this wall? Because I didn't have that many outside yet, and I just wanted to be a street artist, because this is what was happening right now. So he gave me the wall, and I just got to do it, and it was good practice. And then, I had many that were inside, but I didn't have that many outside, and I wanted to be outside because everybody's not going to see ones in schools, but outside is a big, audience. This one underneath, we just found out that Barquet is, closing, but this is a mural that I did. And if you recognize a little person on the right, nose ring, pink lips, blonde locks, might be familiar. So this is actually Amber and her dog, and then this in the middle is her dad, with the same dog, Tyler. So they hired me because they wanted to have a trailer painted in an adoption area, and they wanted to address the disparity between white and black families and, why not as many black families adopt dogs. Well, this little bird and the doghouse in the unconditional and that little section right there, that was an edit. Because at first, I had a sharp-edged graphic of a German Shepherd and black stick people, and I can't remember what dates, or we had some other stuff in there, but we put in there that there's a reason we don't have dogs because our history with dogs hadn't been great. So, but he was like, okay, yes, but this is a loving environment. So, he pulled back, and so this is what we came up with, which I still love. And we never seen it in person since the play's been open. Like, we took this picture right before the park opened to the public. And again, like I said earlier, I got some other murals and stuff. I'm gonna start going through these and explaining where they are. But please, as you're seeing stuff, please think of a question and get with me. This right here is downtown at 13th and Cass. I'm glad I did this before my wife represented me because it wouldn't have happened. Because the amount that they paid me, it would have been an immediate no. But because I represent myself, it was an immediate yes. Because I'm like, I don't know when the next job's coming, so you offer me anything above blank, yes. And so I think you see these, there's another one on the south side of the building, and there's 3 more on the left side. Scale, that's a big building. Give you more idea of the scale, I had to paint those bad boys sideways. So those are 4 panels. And so I'm gonna brag a little bit. I can see stuff just as lines, whether it's words or whatever, painted upside down, backwards. I've drawn and painted so much that now I can just see the thing as shapes. So I love these because they're all shapes, and we'll get to those, but the same concept of doing that and doing this, it's not a real person, it's just art. So don't worry about messing up because there's no such thing, unless you're really stickler about, making it photorealistic, which I'm not. But I was able to do that, and I would stack them every now and then if I got nervous, just to make sure it wasn't gonna look crazy. But that's how I painted those. So each of those pieces that you see are 4 panels. And I got that because of a grant that the city has around, if you put art up in a certain area, it can help reduce crime. Where it is, it's still rough. So take that as you will. I'm glad I got the job. I still love to drive by these and see them. They still haven't been touched, and they've been up 5 years. So it's great. This here is right around the corner. The wall's off Washington. That brought me into the area. We just moved from the gallery over here. We're now in East St. Louis at the Sunshine Cultural Arts Center. That's where our studio is now. But this right here we did around the idea of like who used to live in this area. A lot of people now are talking about Mill Creek and other communities that were displaced for urban, renewal, if you will, urban cleansing. And so I thought about, just doing a, older gentleman. In the top left, you can't see it from the slide, but I had like a file cabinet, and it had accepted and denied, just showing, just kind of hinting to the idea of, housing, disparity and who can and can't be in a certain community. So it was called New Home. Art is very interesting. People might not see that. Some people just see something that's cool. Painting that mesh staircase was enjoyable. I still like to drive by and check that out. Like I'm still, again, this is something I do, and most of my murals I do in a week. And I say that because not necessarily speed, but I don't let myself think. You know, the hardest part for me is coming up with a design. Once I get to the wall, put headphones in and just get it done. Like that, I could do that. Also, I need immediate gratification. And probably the least thing I hate about murals is it's not always enjoyable by the end of the first day. Like, because now I got to come back, and hopefully at that point, by the end of that day, it'll be somewhere where I'm gonna start to get excited. And so it's usually not like the last 2-3 days that I'm like, okay, this is kind of dope. But at first, it's just a job, you know. Again, a lot of my murals are in schools. The one on the left is at Kipp High School up the street. On the right is in Webster. Most of my murals, when I did them between 2017 and 2020 or 2019, right before COVID hit, almost all of them were out in the county. A lot of them, believe it or not, were out in Rock Hill, Rockwood School District, I'm sorry, which most of my murals were done in DEI. That was literally everyone, that was the theme they wanted them to be. So I got about 6 or 7 of them out there. And so I got them out there at the right time. Like right now, it would not happen. And I had, you know, I was requested. There was a couple times when there were parents that were like, you know, had a little flack. You know, I don't say why they had flack. Like, I won't assume anything. But they asked people who were in charge why they didn't do a call out. You know, and the cat was like, well, it's our money and we know this is what we want, so they hired me. I never heard any of it because they kept me shielded from it. They just had me just come in and work. This was done in Cahokia in the high school. It actually made the news during COVID because, you see on that black fist over there, it says Black Lives Matter. I did exactly what the kids wanted. They asked for this mural. School board had some issue with it. They set up a meeting with the kids. Before the meeting even happened, one of the school board members goes in and paints over Black Lives Matter. With a black that's not even the same as the mural. So it's so obvious. I mean, it was already obvious. Words weren't there anymore. But when the kids got and saw that, they walked out. And so it made the news. And Cahokia is a trip. I mean, and I'm sure it's not just Cahokia. I also did something in the middle school. And this is middle school. So these are 7th and 8th graders. They're about to go to high school. Institution is an understatement. Like, those kids were still being walked from class to class. And I'm like, man, these kids are about to go to school and walk by themselves. Like, I can't imagine how that transition is going to happen. But we wound up, what did we do? We did shoes. We did big sneakers around the walls. And I actually did it with the kids. So that was cool. But what's happening in the education system is a trip. This here was done at Hudson and Rock Hill, which I feel like is a Kirkwood little stepchild. You know, that's just my name. I'm not saying anything, but it's just like all these little municipalities. But this was a mural I did there. And again, they always told me what they wanted to see, but then they didn't tell me what they wanted to see. Like, each mural kind of spoke for itself. Every time I painted one, I put it on Instagram, and I would get another call. Like, Instagram has been great for me. I know everybody's not social media, but as an artist, if you make the right connection with those who are looking, it works. This here is in North Carolina. I did that during COVID, and this is actually at one of the centers where they reconnect families with their kids who are in the system. And so that was a trip, just because I'd never been in that environment. And so, I mean, while I'm painting, I'm not really talking to anybody. I'm wearing a mask. But, you know, you find out later that, you know, this kid and this parent you just saw, it's going to be the last time they're going to see each other, or this couple's, you know, this family's trying to get back together. Like, I was just like, whoa. So I was there for a week, and I did this hallway. There's another one in the hallway, and then in the lobby area. So I was, like, in this center, like, painting for a week. This here is out on Lindbergh. This is Bayer. And they wanted me to bring in for their, you know, their food. You remember the name of the project? It was it's about their science of food and bringing food to, you know, communities that need more nourishment. And so it's the first time I had to wear a hard hat. and I've never done anything like this, but I enjoy doing it. I haven't done anything but it since, but just I'm shocked at the jobs that I get. I mean, this looked like nothing else I did, but the people love the other work I did. And when they asked me to come in, again, it's lines, it's pattern, it's color. So I had a good time working on it. This here is in Fort Scott, Kansas. We actually found out later there's also the childhood home of Gordon Parks. So Fort Scott, Kansas is population 7,500, I believe. But the movie Glory, that troop was the first paid troop to go to the Civil War. The first Kansas, the 79th, they were completely volunteer. And so this mural here is right across the street from where they actually got trained. Completely white town, but this fort is still there standing. We didn't get a chance to go to it. When I painted this, man, it was hot. Like it was 100 degrees literally, but, and the owner of this building, he had been approached by many other projects, but when he saw this one, he accepted, them putting a mural on the wall. And I got this mural, I put a RFQ, I answered one of the calls, and they didn't really want somebody outside of a certain area, but they also didn't want anybody non-black painting somebody black because everybody else's look whack. And they liked the way mine looked, just to be discreet. I did it a way that gave the subject justice. And I thought it was a trip painting men of color, now to arms. And you got every now and then, a truck with a flag on it racing by, loud music. Like this environment was wild. So I was just a trip to even paint this there. We didn't have any smoke to the last day we were about to leave, and we were at the auto store, and they didn't like the fact that we had a newer truck than they did, these two young men. And so, but there was nothing happening. We just heard them and we thought it was hilarious. But I'm actually gonna be going back because now I had these panels, I just delivered them to my studio over in East St. Louis, because we've now been hired to do a mural of Gordon Parks, but they don't want it on the actual brick. So I'm gonna paint it here and then we're gonna drive it down there. This here is right around the corner at SLU. Again, I talked about Mill Creek and I applied for, a call for a mural of some sort. And so this is what I proposed. And so I wanted to hit on faith, music, business, sports. I won't go too deep into it. The St. Louis, the stars and sports, we know about that. We know musicians came through and at Gaslight Square. We know about that. I didn't know about 40 plus churches getting tore down that were apparently going to use that land for other spaces. I put vacant on the bottom because to this day, some of those spots are still vacant. I mean, they're probably being rented out as parking spaces now, but like all these churches are getting rid of for no reason. And then just the business center, like there was so much money downtown at Rose, at this financial center, like all that got wiped out. And so this was a pretty special project to me. So if you go around the corner to SLU at Grand and Lindell, it's right there on the corner around the fountain. And then this mural I just finished on Delmar and de Bolivar. This is for RAC's 40th anniversary. I did this with Robert Fishbone. He's been doing murals for 50 years, and they hired him. He hired me. We made magic. And I love this one too. This is pretty big. I fit inside that little black hole, and you can see a door over there. That's a large mural. It's my first time ever collabing with anybody, and it's my first time ever sketching on the wall with a projector. Like I do everything freehand. He showed me the power of projector, so I may consider it, but then, I probably won't. I'll probably stick to what I like. This was in the airport. I proposed to do, a yoga series, so it's all black children doing yoga. And then one day I don't know if somebody sent this or I saw it on Instagram, but saw this photo of this little girl doing a, pose when she walked through there and saw the work, and I was just like, that's why. And so on the right is Cbabi's All-Stars, is a series that I do, little kids with the fist up. Pretty much for kids to stand up for the life that they want to live. No shoulds on the bottom. We should each other to death. what you should do to make money, what you should do, what you could do, we should. And most shoulds come from people that have no idea what they're talking about. They just know what they think is gonna be successful. But we just need to let our kids do, because some of the ways we're gonna get out of this mess is by ways that we couldn't even imagine. So we just need to let them be. They're taking everything in, even when we don't think they are. They're gonna be fine. They're probably gonna be the ones to save us, so just get out the way. And so that's what that image is about. And that's what the series is about. So Goodnight Racism, that's the book that was mentioned being on the bestsellers list. I did that with Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. This is one of the panels from that book. This couple right here is right around the corner at Target in Midtown. But this is one of the panels for the book. I got this book job. I was freaking out. I'm like, Goodnight Racism. Oh my God, how are we gonna attach that? And this was when all the smoke was coming. He already gets smoked, but again, I don't consider myself one to cause friction. So I have to challenge that. I try to be nice, be kind, blah, blah, blah. So I'm trying to figure out this balance between, I know who I'm as a person. So at some point I'm gonna have to yell at somebody, or I'm just gonna have to be a little bit more, push back, which I don't usually do. Lean on, Amber's great at it, so I'm trying to take her lesson. And I don't say that sarcastically. I mean literally, like, I want to be good at telling people, like, when something's not appropriate. But with this, we talked through the pages, and we came up with a way to address each subject, and it wound up being a beautiful book. So if you get a chance, I definitely recommend it. And then right here, my iPad, this is one of my favorite tools. I'm working on this a lot. This is where we are in the world right now. A lot of digital artists. All these are digital. They were all done right here on my iPad, sitting on the sofa. Those are all vector. And the birds, they're in there in the background behind the Black Christ. This is a project we did with Dr. T. I don't know if you know the brick, the punch, but just a great dude. Dr. Punch was recently 314 Oasis over in Fountain Park, where the tornado hit. But we've been working with them. It's been a collaboration. So the stages of my career, again, caricature artists, doing portraits, doing a dad series, doing murals, now doing a lot of branding with not-for-profit and profit organizations. This is probably one of our favorite partnerships, because just the work that is being done. And I'm wearing Are You OK socks for that reason too, because we came up with this pill design. I just thought about it because we said, Are you OK? And I knew you were dealing with opiate overdose, and then, giving out these kits. And so I was like, it has to be a pill. And so we came up with a pill, hope, compassion. So these are boxes that they give away. That's Dr. Punch right here. And this was the first project that I did with him, creating the graphics for this van, this truck to drive around the city, and just be boots to the ground and bringing medicine to the people, man. And so there's actually 3 out there. We're supposed to be starting on another one for another program that the T, the Brick, the Bro are doing. This is a project that was done recently. I put Rethink up there for a reason. Like, Dean William Johnson just ended his station at SLU Law School. And he was gonna leave without getting a portrait up, because he didn't want to be another old white man on the wall. And so after everybody beat him down and said, you have to, he's like, I'm only gonna do it if Cbabi paints it. And so this mural is a complete contrast to the rest of them. Very colorful. One of my kids with the fist up is on the shelf. You got a wood sculpture of a fist on the top shelf, and then all the books, or a lot of books that have been banned. And so now this is hanging at SLU Law School, and this was just done this winter, which is cool. On the right at WashU, again, how things are tied together. I worked at Six Flags. This cat named Misi, Chris, we worked together. Well, he has a cousin that works at WashU, and he told his cousin about me. And his cousin's over, brain research, and they want to do these paintings, to take away stigma from have to, because folks had to wear helmets and, just the stigma around research and, brain care. And so they hired us to do 3 paintings to put in their center, and this was one of them. That was cool. Didn't see that coming. Again, this is Target Mill Creek. This was before Target hit the list where everybody was like, no more Target. So I like this because they left Mill Creek in there, which is a big deal because even though glasses on that person right there, they had to make it past lawyers. Like they wanted to break everything down in this and make sure that I wasn't stealing something. Even though in my mind, like it was all cartoon, but for them, it's just like, we need to know for sure this is okay. And the person wasn't smiling like that. And the idea came up, they didn't want people to feel unsafe. They wanted to make sure that Target felt like a safe environment, so they wanted the black person to be smiling more. And then the little kid wasn't smiling so big with his teeth, and they're like, we don't want this to look like a place where children are in danger. So it went through a lot to get this mural up on the wall. And I'm also surprised that the little girl with the fist made it through. Like, that was a shock, because I put it in there, we put it in there, but I just knew that was gonna get kicked out. But they didn't even mention it. And I say that too, like so many fists have been removed from murals. Even I did a school, I did a painting for a school, and I had one of my kids with the fist up, all black school. Can you open up the fist and put a book in it? Because the fist is just too much. And I was like, okay. That's been a big thing in my career. So I love painting fists now, man. I got a lot of cool fists at home. Just recently, last year, Brian's in the back. I do Paint Lewis every year down at the riverfront. So it takes Shoto all the way till it runs into the river, and then you got this 2-mile graffiti wall. So every year, Labor Day weekend, we redo the wall. Last year, I partnered with Mighty Kind, and we had just gotten back from New York. Did we go to New York yet? Yeah, we did go to New York, I believe. And there's this cat there that has his clothing line, and we went in there, and he had these watermelon wallets and all this other dope stuff. So I was like, yep, that's the subject. And so I did this wall, and then that became a can for this THC watermelon seltzer, which is delicious. And then we got this call I didn't expect. I got contacted to do animation for the Dred Scott exhibit within the courthouse. Well, then the courthouse people called, and they're like, hey, can you help us with rebranding? I had another oh shit moment, because I had never done that. And I'm like, shockingly, you see these and all that? Target was a crash course in me. That mural's all digital. I wasn't good at Illustrator. In fact, I didn't even know how to use Illustrator. I learned how to do Illustrator because I said yes to that Target mural. Like, I'm big on, from caricatures till today, another human being has done it in the art area. Come on, if they done it, they got 5 fingers like me, I can do it. And so I'm gonna say yes, it might be tragic, the experience, but I'm gonna get through it, and on the other end of it, it's gonna be great. Well, they came through, and they asked me to help do the rebranding for the reopening of the courthouse, and this is what, I came up with. And that was a great day, and the banners up was amazing. I'm showing this, you didn't see this, because it's gonna go up soon. I can't tell you where, but I just wanted to throw that in there. And then this is just to show you that even now in 2025, I still do caricatures. They're just a little different. Even those up there, I had no idea how these were gonna look, because I had been doing faces with patterns, but I knew wanted to have color in them. And so, but this is what I do when I'm doing my own and I'm drawing on my iPad and playing. Gallery Laughs is tonight at the St. Louis Art Museum, and it's free to the public. So we partner with Midcoast Media, Chris Denman, and I do a character, I guess there are caricatures, a caricature of the comedian of the evening, and then they're gonna give 2 of the posters away. Me and the artist will sign them. So I do a poster for them to give away, and again, flexing and getting all these muscles done on my iPad. Just to show you some more work that I do on my iPad, I have a lot of styles. I just have to create, and I have to get it out, and I work. This here, this is a map of our human connection. somewhere in there is this experience here. All these fingers, one of these represents you. They represent an idea. We're always like, how did this happen? How did that happen? Almost everything we can see happened because somewhere somebody crossed with something, a thought, an idea, somebody almost hitting you at a stop sign. Like, we're all dependent on everybody, even when we don't want to act like it. So that's what this represents when I'm doing these on my iPad. They're just maps of our human connection. Like, this could either be a person or it could be a community. Like, from the time we're born to right now, we've been through so much and seen so much, it affects who we are. And we can't even go back and say what most of it is, because it just always happens on a constant. You know, our human connection is something that, you know, we've been given, and it's a gift, but it also be a curse if we don't use it right. This was done as a partnership with Explore St. Louis, and they actually took me to Kentucky to paint this live on stage. It's a little more obvious with the hand thing, but this is still the same concept. This is really like, you know, this is the Lou. The Lou is the people. When I say I love St. Louis, I love this, I love us. And so I keep on painting this. So before I get to the question and answer, this series right here is dope. Remember me? A lot of unsolved murders here in St. Louis. Marshall Project, we didn't see that project coming, but once we got on the phone call with Ragu and he told us about it, I mean, it was a no-brainer. You know, we were just like, yep, we gotta be a part of this. I had been trying to get away from doing portraits because I'd done so many of them and people don't understand the value of it. The 365 Days of Dad series, I charged $200 for those because I didn't want it to be about the money. I wanted to be about money as far as if I painted so many, I would make a good, decent amount. But as far as people's homes, I didn't want it to be a burden. And so, but that's still carried on till to this day. People still don't know what expect to pay for a mural, for a portrait. So when we got this job, I couldn't deny that I know how to do faces. I've been doing it my whole career. And so the very subject and the very necessity of this is why we said yes. You know, me and my wife were talking the other night, and Amber said these were abstracts. And I was like, abstracts? I was like, but when I look at them, and looking at shapes and looking at color, if I get up close to it, I can see what she's talking about. Abstract to me is more what you see on the screen, but I can see what she means as far as this. But there's so much life in here, and just the other day, all the families were over here seeing them. I didn't know if they were gonna like it or not. Portraits also is stressful, because you put all your into it, but people don't always know. They don't see what you see, and they also don't see what they actually look like. And so when you paint them, they're like, But I'm like, no, that's exactly how you look, I promise you. But this right here, I got tears and hugs, and so that was very refreshing. Last thing I'll mention, got great pieces. Of course, that's what it is. All hands, many hands involved is that the name of that painting right there with the yellow tape. But I want to talk about this. I painted this at Vashon. And I asked them if I could come there and paint live. So I painted this in the vestibule. And the principal didn't come to me, but she went to somebody else and she said, you need to ask him to leave because what he's doing over there is inappropriate. And I was like, we know there's guns outside in the bush. Like, these kids aren't hip to, this is not a subject that they can't handle because they're living it every day. And so, I put man up nigga on there, even though people don't want to hear the word, but it's the language. It's what people say, it's what they talk. And just get past the N-word, this whole idea of, what does this actually mean? And what does it mean for him? And I don't want to give away because I don't even know honestly what it means. It changes when I think about it. But I painted this in response to a young man in Chicago who made a story when he was gunned down in the alley for what his dad had been involved with. And so that's why I painted this, because is that gun pointing at him or is it pointing at his kid because of his decisions? And at first I think I had 2 tears under the eye, but I just took those off because everybody doesn't mark themselves, and you don't know what everybody's involved with, or I didn't want to give too much into what this painting meant. But gun violence is a thing, we hear it all the day, but my hand is tattooed God's tool. It keeps showing up, I keep painting, people keep asking for me, I keep coming to do talks like this, and the story keeps growing. So I'm blessed and honored that you guys asked me to come talk. And I know I've dropped down a whole lot on you, but hopefully in there's still room for a question or two where I can expand and share something else with you that I couldn't think of, but this has been my life, man, for 30 years, and the story continues. All right.